So let's move on and let's go on with our panel discussion on the XR, the game changer, information with experience. I'd like to introduce the panel, starting with our respected moderator, Mr. Mark Winkelman, Global Director, IWS Manufacturing Excellence, Procter & Gamble, Ms. THURAYA AL-HARTHI, Senior Specialist, Innovation and Emerging Technologies, Ministry of Transport, Communication and Information Technology, Mr. MOHAMMED, MAHROUS, Director of Digital Health Strategy and Innovation, MADINAH Health Cluster, Ministry of Health, Saudi Arabia, Dr. FOUAD Abu Chara, CHACRA, Senior Specialist, Special Projects and Innovation, Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, DEWA, and Mr. BHARGAB DUTTA, Head of Digital and Analytics, COE, COLGATE, PALMOLIVE, India Limited. Over to you to moderate the panel, Mr. Mark.
So good afternoon, good evening. I hope you can hear me.
This is absolutely fine, much better.
It only dropped out the whole morning, so I hope it will sustain for the next 40 minutes. So let's start with talking about XR in the various environments. So I like to start with painting the landscape. So how would XR change the business in the various sectors? So if I can start with Mohammed. So how do you believe XR is transforming the healthcare? Can you share your vision on that?
Firstly, good evening, everyone, and I'm really glad to be here today. Yeah, actually, we have seen the XR, how it's transforming healthcare, and it's becoming like change or a game changer in healthcare recently in different applications. For example, the mental well-being, pain management, stress management, education, and training and medical training. A lot of these applications have been used XR, and it's approved like how to be implemented successfully. We can see a lot of use cases and researchers talking about that. I remember like 2018, the Ministry of Health of Saudi Arabia has announced that to implement virtual reality in all primary healthcare centers across the kingdom to vaccinate kids. And that shows a successful experience in that matter. With the pandemic, also the same. 3 months ago, when they announced that we will like vaccinate the kids, they have used the XR or virtual reality in all the centers to vaccinate the kids. And as I mentioned like before, a lot of applications, different areas in healthcare has been transformed successfully with the use of XR.
So I have the same issues with my computer setup. But I will continue like this. I will just speak much louder. So it's interesting because in the power industry scaling that you have found some opportunities to use it. So in the healthcare. If I go to a completely different scenario, it's the power industry, which runs on a very different business model. So can we get an idea how that looks like in that world? Fouad, can you explain that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, dear colleagues, panelists. Hello to everyone in the audience. So if we look at power utilities and XR in power utilities, and if I couple this these solutions or these technologies with Gartner's hype cycle, so we didn't reach yet a peak of inflated expectations. So power utilities are just starting in the discovery and exploration phase of these technologies. So we can fit it in the hype cycle at the stage of technology trigger. Why is that? Because for me, I work in power utilities, and power utilities are the dinosaurs of the industry. Why dinosaurs? Because we have very strict criteria, KPI and targets of reliability and availability. We can't allow power to go off. And so we feel very shy or very conservative in trying out new technologies and finding the right use cases that can be coupled with the right technologies. And digital transformation in power utilities started, we all know that it started more than 50 years ago with the SCADA systems, control centers, substation automation, later on telecommunication, integration between IT and OT. We all see these boiling developments, but XR in general, both VR and AR, are still in the starting phase. What we're doing now, we're exploring some use cases. So we have some very juicy use case for training and capability buildings in VR domain. So this will allow for scalability of training sessions, of capability buildings, instead of sending multiple batches to substations, to sites of overhead lines, to get them trained on operations, troubleshooting, and so on. We can do these mass repetitive trainings on demand at participants' leisure using VR technologies. We're exploring use cases in AR, augmented reality, where we integrate with back-end systems. We can overlay asset information to people working at site, so they can see on their headset or mobile phone or body wearable, they can see the actual footage from site. On top of it, asset information, step-by-step procedures, checklists, method statements, and so on.
Very interesting. So, and I see the same happening in our company, especially with COVID, when people need to be trained, or when we had to do problem solving, simply being able to look at the machine and understanding what needs to be done. I think that was a very valid version of XR. And then, like as you said, if I take, for example, our PEMPA lines, which are costing tens of millions of dollars, you simply cannot afford to stop that line to give training. So we created a virtual PEMPA line in which people can be trained just running the operation. So if you now look at retail, so THURAYA, if I pronounce your name correctly. So how do you see XR working in that business? Because again, it's very different than power. It's very different than healthcare. You're on mute, sorry.
Yes. First of all, hello, everyone. Thank you for hosting me to be part of the discussion panel. And we're talking about AR and VR. Actually, AR and VR have a great potential in retail industry. And talking about, let's say, the statistics, according to API research, there is over 120,000 stores will deploy AR by the end of this year. And actually, these technologies will be predicted to be account 3% of e-commerce revenue. And we can see now how really the XR is important. It comes to business level and to the buyers. And let me first here talking more about from buyer perspectives. I did a quick marketing research, and I found that about 80% of buyers find that it's a wasting time to just wait in a long queue just to try, for example, just one dress. Or just imagine with me, if you just bought a new house and you want to just decorate it. Okay, so let's start with the living room. You want the living room, you choose, let's say you choose a modern theme, and then you just visit many shops. You don't know, you select the items, but at the end, you don't know which item is fit in each certain area. So basically, you're just wasting your time. You are wasting your money, because sometimes you buy items, but at the end the item is not fit in this certain area. So basically, AR and XR, this help the customers to visualize how the things look like, and also it helps to enhance the decision making. Because you can see the things how it looks like. For example, there is a lot of examples like IKEA. Actually, IKEA they deployed an applications they called place applications, and this is actually allows the shopper to use the AR in their smartphone. They just open the camera and they can just visualize and they can select which furniture it's look like. And this is actually will help to create a unique experience for the customers.
And I see that.
Yeah.
And because I need to manage time a little bit. So I see that we're doing the same in my company. Instead of trying to work out how a shelf should look like, we create a virtual shelf so we can see exactly how our products will look like together with competition. But also things like if you put a €1 sticker on it as promotion, so what color should it be, how big should it be? And then you can simply build that shelf, and then by having sensors, when people walk through our virtual store, understanding where do they look at. And again, it's exactly what you said. You eliminate a lot of the waste time because the trying and error is done virtually versus physically.
Yes.
So it seems to be a very disruptive technology to use. So BHARGAB, so how would you see that in your business?
Yeah, so hi. So see, in CPG industry and also some of the industries that I have worked very recently, and I have definitely seen the progress over the use of XR technologies. XR is a big term anyway, right? XR means AR, VR, and mixed reality and all these things. Now, few points already have been touched upon by you and my I think previous speaker THURAYA, if I is pronouncing your name correctly. So in retail industry, especially, I will not repeat what has been discussed, but one important use and disruption we have seen in fashion and apparel industry. People were thinking whether it is possible or not, because after all, in fashion and in those kind of industry, you want to feel the experience, right? You want to feel that experience. But how that feeling of that experience you can provide through XR technology, that was a big question mark. But now that the technology has been evolving so much that because of your digital persona, digital footprint already there, already being created, which gives you the type of, let's say, consider fashion industry itself, which give you the type of interest you have, right? A type of color you prefer, and what is the shape, size of your clothings and all these things. So, or if everything is there, then the technology is getting created, although it is not fully implemented everywhere, but some experimental insights going on that using XR without visiting the store, you can buy your preferred cloth, right? You can buy your preferred apparels. So that is one interesting use case I have seen recently. And I think retail shelf already you have mentioned, and that has been quite widely used. Another important point I would like to add here, that is from the sustainability perspective. I will take some different angle here. Nowadays, what we have seen, that green sustainability initiatives are being very well understood by people and well appreciated. Now, through XR, what we are trying to do in few of the examples, that if I'm going to buy some product, then if I can show through the journey, the upstream journey of that product, right? The product value chain, and how it has been created from the sustainability angle, that through XR technology, right? So through XR, leveraging XR technology, that is what another experimental work going on at this moment. However, it is still a little bit away than reality, but it would be, I believe it would be another big thing in next 1 or 2 years down the line. So this is what I would like to add at this moment.
Yeah, fully. So we talked a lot now about what are the advantages for the consumer. THURAYA, so if I look at the retail industry itself, so where do you see the advantages for them, the competitive advantage?
Can you repeat the question, please?
So we talked now until now about, so how does it help consumers how to figure out to decorate their house, or how it should look like. Sorry, if you go to the retail industry, so the other side of the equation, so how would it help them?
Yeah, sure. So basically, we understand like every online shopping, every companies, and nowadays they just moving towards the online shopping. But actually, talking about the XR, it's definitely will enhance the experience for both companies and customers. I already talked about the customers, but talking about the companies first, it will increase the productivity. And let's see about the statistics and the facts. There is a report, it's already released from Research Institute that showed that about 82% of the companies that are using XR claim the benefits. They are already meet and they exceed their expectation. They have high revenue and high profit. So basically, and this is actually will lead to customer satisfaction. And also, if you are using XR, you will have a better insight because you are collecting the data based on the users when they are using this technology. So you can have, like, you will know more about your users, about your customers, what are their preferences. Another point, which is about, there is actually debate in this point, but this is my view. I think it's all about storage capacity. Actually, I think it's another advantage for the company, because when you are using XR and online shopping, it's actually reduced the number of branches. And now seems like, oh, this is error for some companies. But this is the traditional way of thinking. It's like more branches, more profits, and more revenue. But none of this generation, they are using this approach, because I think more branches means more expenses, and more online shopping using XR will decrease the branches, but doesn't mean the revenue will be dropped. And why? Because the storage and the manufacturing will be immediately will go to the buyers instead staying inside the branches and shops.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I see it also the same in my company. Versus having this long supply chain with a lot of inventory. If I see how we deliver Amazon, it's virtually, no, not virtually, it's physically at the end of the line. So there's always product. And we just put on one sticker. It's a table with two persons, if you make it very black-white, with a cage of the German Postal Service. And that's the whole operation. So from a revenue point of view, yes, the same price. But then from a cost point of view, it is, yeah, I don't know how I should calculate it, but it's at least, it's 50% less. So, BHARGAB, do you see any other tangible benefits?
Yeah, so actually, this point you rightly said, inventory is something definitely. In fact, I have personally seen this effect in my CPG industries examples, from the stock push-based supply chain to pull-based supply chain, right? The way it is being transformed through XR technologies, and in a way, it is helping managing my working capital better. However, I would like to mention one point here, because this particular shift, right? This particular shift definitely has got more sped up after this COVID scenario. That is the reality, to be frank. Pre-COVID, I would say it was more like a nice to have a strategy in most of the organizations, even whatever I was working with. Of course, everyone is experimenting, but then that's change, the behavioral change that happened from the consumer perspective, especially in the CPG industry. And that experiment, what we had earlier, we had to make it a quick reality within just 3 to 6 months time. And from that benefit, definitely a couple of things I would like to definitely highlight that. First of all, inventory of management, it was becoming really smooth nowadays. From my top line growth perspective, although we had 1 or 2 months of effect due to pandemic and all situations, but then bounce back was really good. And it was afterwards, now it is like we are getting into I would not say it is fully XR everywhere, of course, still physical based domain is still predominant, but we are making a transition into more physical way of doing the business. Physical plus digital, we are calling it physical nowadays. And this is because of this XR technology, in a way, fundamentally fueled by these XR technologies. And I think it will be a future going forward, definitely.
Yeah. So we have talked about the landscape, we talked about the advantages. But let's talk about the obstacles. So for what you started with explaining to us that you have a no-miss business, and because everybody expects energy always to run. So what did you find as obstacles or difficulties to deploy this type of technology in your type of business, so the power utilities?
Yeah, sure. So the initial difficulties are to find the right use cases to be for XR technologies. So once past this phase, for example, if we talk about virtual reality and we talk about training use case. So for training, we have the first obstacle, which is the content creation. So there are no readily available contents in the power utilities domain, contrarily to consumer and retail markets. So we need specialized suppliers or vendors to come, maybe explore through getting 3D documents or start preparing these 3D documents, design documents, shop drawings for our substations, for our assets, in order to do that content creation. Once the content creation obstacle is done, we need to link this material with a learning management system where we measure progress of our trainees, we can score them, we can push exams and quizzes to them, and so on. For other use cases related to asset management, such as troubleshooting with AR in our live locations, we're looking at difficulties such as the telecommunications, standardization of body wearables to harsh environments, especially in the Gulf countries. We're talking about the difficulties for integrating body wearables and human machine interface with back-end systems, so we can project asset information in front of maintenance crews, and so on. Another difficulty will be building the learning curve and change management. People have been trained for tens of years on certain practices in maintenance, in commissioning, in training, in operations. And now we need to change their mindset through building maybe an attractive human-machine interface, equipping it with some easy commands instead of using a keyboard or a pencil and paper, maybe voice commands, motion commands. So these body wearables can interact with maintenance crews, with operation crews to execute their operations. So these are the difficulties we're foreseeing in this domain.
Yeah, fully aligned with your observations. So, so one way we did that in our company is, first of all, we have one standard IT platform for all the sites. So we have 109 sites around the world. They are physically having exactly the same IT setup. So which means whatever virtual tool you build is working everywhere. So you avoid having special applications for one location, which in the end becomes unaffordable.
So it's fully scalable.
It's fully scalable from top to bottom. So you change the plant code, you're on another factory. And then another important aspect is that we invest only, you make it very black white again, the last 30% in high-tech technology. The first 70% is making sure our base systems are running perfectly. Because that frees up the time of all our operators and the time of our leadership to work on improvement. So it's not an expert who's making our applications, even for virtual reality, it's our operators. So they do that work while the line is running, so they've done the changeover, they have done the maintenance, and then in between, as our lines run virtually without stops, or physically without stops, they have time then to work on their passion. It could be doing a safety work, could be doing quality work, but it can also be developing applications. And we have read that especially our new generation people, they are extremely capable in all this type of tools. And so that's one way to bridge it. Your point, so how do you make sure it is relevant for the workflow? In our case, it's made by the workflow, so they know it's relevant. Looking at healthcare, so Mohammed, what did you find as obstacles or challenges to implement this?
Maybe like the most important one, which is because, you know, healthcare, as like Dr. FOUAD said, highly regulated like industries, and to find like a clear, for example, FDA cleared device, this is one of the obstacles that we are usually faced to select a vendor. The second one is a cultural change. Cultural change, especially for medical or clinical training to use it on that one. Taking or trust the base sensor measurements with the XR tools to read the data, how they trust that data. These are like the most obstacles that we find in implementing XR in healthcare.
So how did you work on the last one? So how did you build the trust? Because I think I can imagine if you get a surgery and you want to make sure it goes right. So then having a camera looking at you, I can imagine it's a little bit frightening.
Exactly what I mentioned, exactly, which is the sensor-based measurements. So we want to take, for example, in physiotherapy, we want to make sure that the patient is rotated like as 90% the neck for physiotherapy or rehab. This is the things that usually clinical people, they are not really sure about it. And they usually claim for it. But I really liked what THURAYA said. It's something based on a need, really a customer need. This is what makes it to be implemented successfully. So as soon as you understand the need, I mean, like the builder of the healthcare application, XR healthcare applications, as soon as you got that real need, you will make sure it will be implemented successfully. And we can take...
It's a matter of time until people accept this, like the online shopping?
Exactly. It's like a cultural change and leadership commitment.
Okay. THURAYA from the retail business. So what do you see as the biggest obstacle?
Yeah. Basically, we have an experience. We worked closely with the youth regarding to XR creation. And one of the founder, they created Mind XR, which is a platform that will help the children to overcome pain during treatment by watching virtual reality content. So basically, it's maybe the idea it's unique, but I think the most difficult is how you can convince the people to use this technology. It's basically about change management. You can bring the technologies, but you have to make sure at the end the people they will use it. So I think the first challenges we face it's more about change management, and also about the content itself. It should be unique. It should be more excitement. It should be attractive for the people. Encourage them to use them, especially when it comes to the tourism sector.
Yeah, and I would add simple. I mean that's because I had to do some.
Yes, and actually many ideas generated by youth, it was very complicated. So I think the idea is to come up with simple ideas, make it simple, work in the marketing campaign, try to convince people how this will add benefit from you, how this will save a lot of money and time.
Bharbhat, what is your point of view on the obstacles you find in your business?
Yeah, so obstacles are, of course, always is there. In terms of my main concern is that, as already been touched upon the change management piece, right? That behavior piece, right? Now, when we talk about XR, we excite people, consumers. We excite consumers. Okay, these are a very new technology, very modern and all. But at the same time, if that expectation or if that excitement does not correlate with the reality, right? Because eventually people want that experience, what they are typically they see in normal world. How close is that experience in XR through XR technologies? Sorry. So that is where I believe this some amount of obstacles are still there. However, I would say it is not obstacles are not same across all. I am again taking the example of retail side of business. Let's say self-management, virtual self. There you do not need that very real type experiment, right? Experience. It's basically the, let's say, just to give you an example, I'm doing a grocery store shopping today, leveraging an app, selecting items, and I'm giving online order, right? Instead of that, if I bring in that shelf view, right, the shelf 3D view, and you can go with the way you walk along the shelf in the real store, exactly same way we can bring that feel, right? That time people will be interested and excited. But at the same time, for that industry, it may be feasible, it may be easy to implement, and experience is close to the real world. But at the same time, some other industry, it may not be. Right? So that is where these obstacles will be there. Depending on the industry's easiness and the closeness to the reality, the obstacles definition will be also vary. So that is what I would like to highlight here.
Okay. So the last 5 minutes, I will ask you a question which you didn't prepare. So I'll start with FOUAD. So looking 5 years ahead, so what do you think is the biggest change you will see? I don't know, you didn't prepare this. I didn't ask you to prepare this question. Just please take a shot at it, and then I will go to the other, so you have a little bit more time to prepare.
Yeah, so here I'm talking again about power utilities. I have my own expectations as a customer, as a consumer. So in power utilities, what I dream of, so it's not what I foresee it will happen in the next 5 years. I dream of the control room of the future. So digital transformation was very aggressive, ambitious in power utilities, and especially in particular in Dubai. So all our substations, all our assets are unmanned. So we don't have human operators in these 400 or so sites, transmission substations. I dream of a control room where we control all these substations. We visualize what's going on inside each of these substations through XR technologies. And whenever we send people at site for troubleshooting, for maintenance activities, they will be equipped with these XR technologies, whether VR for training or AR for asset management, troubleshooting, getting remote expert assistance from office or even from overseas, from other countries, from countries like Germany, where we have our OEM vendors, or the US or Japan, and so on. I foresee that we will not have remote factory inspections. So now we're sending people to go and attend a transformer test or a cable test in these countries, in Europe, in Japan, in the US. I foresee that our tester or team of testers will be in Dubai, but a representative of the vendor will be running the test as if our testers are present in this overseas countries. So we save on time, we save on travel costs, on logistics, and so on, and we meet our quality standards. These are the dreams I foresee in our domain.
Yeah, I think it's a very good dream. So we made that dream already partly alive. By again, Pamplona will have something like 6,000 sensors. So we can easily predict which sensor is out, but as also all the Pamplines around the world are the same, we can easily correlate whether this is an acceptable outage or not. And then you get exactly to your point. And we are not having a traditional maintenance program anymore where people do standard work or repeating standard work. We go for the sensors, and the sensors will indicate whether something is needed, whether it can solve itself, or whether someone needs to go there. So they're very much in line with what your dream is about. But then in a less essential business, and we can fail.
We have already the full automation with a lot of sensing equipment, with a lot of data feed, data traffic.
It's more the next step.
Additional layer of AR, VR on top of this big data lake.
Perfect. Thuraya, I see your micro is on, so you will be the next. So what do you foresee in 5 years from now? So, or to put it in FOUAD's words, so what is your dream?
It's not about talking about my dream. Actually, it's just some advices for organizations or for industry.
Okay.
Well, what I can say that the XR will reshape our future in better way. So actually, my advice for organization, I encourage them to invest a lot in research and development, and also to empower the youth, because the youth they are the future. We need to empower them and make sure they understand how this actually technology will help in the futures. We need to train them. We help them to learn such technologies that will lead our future.
Yeah, and without this, you also don't attract people anymore. That's also a very clear lesson of the last 10 years. And so if you have a very old-fashioned factory, good luck in finding people for your factory, because they will not show up. You will look at it and say, oh, I'm not going to work here. BHARGAB. Your 1 minute of future.
Yeah. So I would add here the perspective of, yeah, am I audible?
I can hear you, but the camera is not switching. But I can hear you at least.
Okay, fine. Yeah, so actually I would like to bring the perspective of metaverse here. What I would like to see in, let's say, 5 years down the line, my consumer, if let's say he wants to buy a high-end television, right? And or any other high-end product, at the same time while buying, if he through metaverse, if he gets an expert along with him while buying, who can guide him, or we can highlight him what is right, what is wrong, what is the comparison, right? Which nowadays, it's the same, that experience. If you can bring in, if you go into that level of experience by identifying the right expert by helping him doing the buying of certain important and high-end product through a metaverse environment, and the expert can be anywhere in the world, correct? So that is what I was thinking. That could be the next future in the 5 years, 4, 5 years, or 6, 7 years down the line.
Yeah, so there are no boundaries anymore. You can find exactly the person who exactly can help you.
Correct.
The last minute is for Mohammed. Please, what is your takeaway of this?
Yeah, actually, in short term, I would like to see the use of AR and VR in terms of training, clinical training, to be used a little bit more and more in Saudi Arabia or even in the Middle East. And in the long term, I would like to see like how the XR can be exploited in other applications also in the healthcare industry. This is what I really like to see, how it's gonna go so far.
Okay, that's a great thought. So with this, we will end our panel, and I will hand back to Bridget or Roger. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark and your panelists. So before I move on to thanking all of you individually, I'd like to apologize for the slight delay that we had to start this panel discussion. Having said that, I'd like to thank our panelists very much, Ms. THURAYA, Mohammed, FOUAD, BHARGAB, and Mark, our moderator, for an extremely interactive and insightful discussion. It is indeed great to hear about the experiences and what changes XR brings to the table. Thank you once again, and please continue to have a great rest of the day.